The SBS Superbike Olympics 2015 brought to you in association with Electronia, Lomacor Electrics, Turbo Toys and Goldfield Casino. An incredible event here at the Pakisa Raceway in Valcom. It's the Superbike Olympics 2015, brought to you by MRA, Motor Rider Academy, and Goldfields Casino. The story of it is a two-day event. Day number one, all about the drag racing, gymkhana, a little bit of practice out there on the track, and qualifying. Day number two is where it all kicks off. We've got the sprint races through classes A, B, C, and D, and then the endurance race. This is an incredible format. It's a four-rider team event, point scoring, points make prizes, and at the end of it, they will all be Superbike Olympians. So the whole idea of day number one, everyone getting themselves ready and dialed in. Most riders getting up a full day before the event and getting themselves ready to rock and roll. Team eventing is what this is all about. So a lot of guys changed up the colors of their bikes, dusted off their leathers, and certainly broke out some funky colors to make sure they were identified as team riders. The whole event started out with a full parade lap with every single rider, that's A, B, C, D categories, and hangers-on as well, lining themselves up to introduce themselves to the crowd and their competition as Olympians for 2015. An incredible lineup of riders, and they would now get themselves ready for their first event in the Superbike Olympics, the drag race. So heading to the very first event on day number one of the SBS Superbike Olympics. Team East Coast getting themselves ready. The girls are down there ready to shine a little bit of shade and make sure the guys stay cool. Lots of nerves at the first ever event. The lights go green and we are good to go for the first drag event. Riders were identified by the inside or the outside lane, either wearing the colored band on the inside or not on the outside. And unfortunately, not everyone getting the best start to get the day running. Some of our younger competitors lining themselves up there on the smaller capacity machines to go up against the big dogs. 600cc machines versus 1000cc's, a couple of 750s, 300s and 350s thrown in for good measure as well. But it was all about reaction times in the drag to get it fired off the line and hopefully not jumping it. And our big dog there pointing out one of the early jumpers who would be penalized. Superbike Olympics is an incredible thing happening out here at the Pakisa Raceway in Valcom. We've got all riders from black to white, men to women, and we've got our youngest rider on the grid standing next to him. Justin, you've got one of the smallest bikes out here, one of the biggest hearts, and everyone is going to be supporting you. How do you feel to be part of this event?
You know, I have a passion for bike riding. I love it. I want to do it. And MIA is just doing it for the fun. So I'm just going to bang it and go.
That's what it's about. Olympics, you've got to get the points. And we've got one of our top young riders, the future of the sport. So all of the D-class competitors have had at least 2 bites of the cherry and 2 big runs down the strip. It was Brendan Niemann on Team HPS in the center of the shot that went undefeated to win out the main event in the Class Ds.
I'm glad I won. I didn't expect to win, but luckily my bike's excellent and it was good. I'm quite happy with today's result, but I want to go big and see what happens.
So Brendan Niemann, the best of the rest, and the Class D guys being the slowest. But as we go through the day, times will get tighter, results will get hotter. Class C are the next category of riders to get themselves out onto the grid. And once again, They would be going up against each other twice, inside and outside lanes, and going through the knockout rounds to try and make it into the 3-rider main event. As with the Ds, a lot of the C riders don't have the experience of drag racing. A lot of them coming off track days and not necessarily knowing exactly how to fire the bikes off the line. That said, in every category, there's always going to be the ringers. And Team 4Ways motorcycles seem to be the team to beat in the Class Cs. In the main event, it was all about Team HPS, once again dominating the dropping of the clutch, and Rocky Mayring took the win. Team Lomacore, it was Bruce Ham getting second place, with Jean Oosthuizen in third for RPM. Category B was where we were going to start seeing some of the big hitters having to take the seat in the Class Bs, but probably a Class A rider. So we would see some good reactions coming off the line, especially from that team. 4Ways motorcycles were throwing down some big numbers, but a lot of the riders were creeping across the line, eager to get the drop on their competition and bang home some points for their team. Thus far, it had been HPS that had dominated classes D and C, and all the rest of the riders were trying to figure out how to dump the clutch on this very short 2-meter drag strip. Hanno van der Merwe trying his best to get a good run off the inside line there to represent for his team. And as we got towards the end, before we got into the main event, the line and the times were getting closer and closer. Lots of riders twitching and trying to figure things out. Team Big Bang getting some good runs the whole way down on the Yamahas and delivering great results on the inside line run. In the main event, though, it was the inside line that awarded Johan van der Merwe of Team Fantastic Four and that Ducati his first win. Second place would go to Fonny van Rensburg, HPS getting second place points and the first time they'd lost out. And third, Chris Janssen van Rensburg and the Big Bang Theory got some points on the table. Class A would deliver some of the best racing on the day as far as the drag strip went, with a lot of national competitor Superbike and regional champions lined up and entered, as well as a national and, by the way, fastest lady on 2 wheels in South Africa, Lomarie Grobler, would line up to try and go undefeated to see if she could tame the beast and the strip that is the start-finish line at the Pekisa Raceway. Big Bang Theory were trying to tame it as well, figuring things out. They'd been very consistent throughout the classes D, C, and B to get points on the table. And this is what everyone had to remember, to try and just get points in the bag at the very first event of a long 2 days of Olympic Superbike racing. AJ Venter, the TT legend coming out of South African shores, normally used to riding the Triumph in Nationals on the 675 machine, would step onto a borrowed BMW to try and get his job done, and had a lot of pressure on his shoulders from his own team to try and get the numbers up there. The big dog was in the house as well. Andre Neethling trying to get the big drop off the line, and Divine Signs would be banging some points for the Class A start line as well. Heading towards the sharp end. A lot of riders getting penalized for jumping off the line. And we would have to wait for the dominating run from Lomarie Grobler to show how it was actually done. Undefeated on every run down the strip. This is her on the inside line here, just hammering the throttle. Normally used to running with the GSX to get off the line. This time, riding her circuit racing bike, the massive Kawasaki ZX-10R. AJ Venter was figuring out how to fire off the BMW and turned off all the electronics to this time put one over on Hannes de Vos on the outside lane. And the BMW man went forward, Kawasaki man went back. Lots of riders were just trying a little bit too hard And so many were up on the back wheel. Nick Kershaw celebrating his victory. And in the final, it was a massive run from Peter de Vos on the middle. Outside was AJ Fenter, and Nick Kershaw had to bow to the dominant run of AJ Fenter. Team MJW Electrical get their first win over de Vos and Kershaw. Everyone knows about Ken Block. Everyone knows the word Gymkhana. That relates to four wheels, but this time at the MRA Superbike Olympics, we've turned that onto two. So as you can see, we're happening behind me. The guys have to go through a crash course here. You cannot put your foot down, you cannot touch the obstacles, and you must complete the track within an allotted time. Whoever is fastest goes on to win. And it's the second event run here at day number 1 of the Superbike Olympics. You can see it is not easy. Most of these riders are used to going flat out around the tracks. This is first, possibly second gear, and it's causing mayhem. So these riders having to use the same machine that they'll be using the entire weekend. That is the same bike that will go on the drag strip. The same bike will go onto Gymkhana, as well as the sprint race and the endurance event. So it's not a case of going and grabbing the pit scooter and going and throwing the big run on the Gymkhana. These guys have to wiggle around on their big cumbersome superbikes. And as you can see from the GoPro shots here, it is difficult to manage these bikes who are set up for flat out speed runs around a delicate circuit such as this. A foot down and you'll lose a second. 2 feet down, you'll lose 2. You see how it goes. You've got to really tread carefully, and it is driving Miss Daisy to try and figure out the lines. If you clip the cones over, you also lose a point. So this is where the Olympics and the point scorings were certainly coming into play, and the team game was played. Handing over to your teammate, and you could see from the aerial shots here how close a lot of the teams were matched. Of course, the teams in the right-hand side had to deal with that extra obstacle, a little puddle from a rain shower the night before. Big Bang Theory on the right-hand side, taming it and getting one over the rest of the teams. Some of the smaller bikes more nimble to get around an obstacle course such as this. But the big bangers, difficult, very difficult indeed, especially the riders that run longer gears. The shot from above showing us just how tight and technical the track is. In length, it's around about, as far as time-wise goes anyway, just under a minute for most of the riders to get themselves through there. And again, to reiterate the point that it is a point-scoring run, one of the best runs actually coming out of our junior rider, Justin Neethling, showing that the smaller 300cc Kawasaki ZX was a great choice of a machine. Yeah, he got owned a little bit down the drag strip, and especially later on in the event on the sprint races and the endurance event, but he was one of the men to beat in the very tight and technical side of riding, which is the Gymkhana. Big Daddy Andre Neethling from Team Divine Signs would go out. He should have been one of the riders to throw down one of the best times, having set up the track himself, but he would have to really muscle himself. He's a big lad as well. Always looks like he should be playing rugby rather than racing superbikes, but he has got a good style and flow and figured it out quite nicely, thank you very much. Out into the back end of the circuit. You've got to go all the way through and do a turnaround in the box. The box actually, speaking to a couple of the riders afterwards, this is it. One of the hardest sections to get themselves through. Felt like the bike wanted to tuck. When you're back up and running, a couple of the riders being able to even click up into second gear through the chicane, weaving their way in and out. This is Kershaw, and he did a real clean run. Clipped the cones, but did not knock them over. Back around the tire circle for East Coast Motorcycles and in to the handover point before the next rider has to do the business. At the end of his run then, and as the last rider in for Team Divine Science, Andre Neethling parks it and the clock stops.
Okay, boy, let's go.
One of the standouts coming from the Gymkhana was Team Fantastic Four, and Johan van der Merwe Jr., the winner of the drag strip in the category Bs, was incredible through the Gymkhana section. We caught up with his entire run to watch the skills on the smooth power delivery and that 1098 Ducati. One of the older machines entered into the Superbike Olympics, but Johan is at one with his machine. A clean run in. Now he's got to make it a clean run back as well. The longer gears on the Ducati allowing him to run that first gear most of the way. We just saw Johan van der Merwe Jr. on the Ducati. He won Class B in the drags, and he looks like he has really tamed the beast in the Gymkhana as well.
It's harder than it looks, but yeah, keeping a fast pace is difficult. But yeah, Motard helped me, so it's lucky.
Yeah, I saw that. We actually got a good shot of you going through there. No problem through the wiggles as well and not clipping any cones. I think that was a good run time.
Well, I thought I clipped one when I came back, but it didn't fall over, so good run for me.
And what about the team as well? Like, you can see that a lot of people don't like going slow, and it's a very different thing. No one else has ever had a go at this.
Yeah, I see. Going slow is more difficult because you don't have that balance of the bike. It tends to just fall over. But yeah, it suits some not.
As the rounds wore on, everyone was making note of the different lines and using them for their advantage.
It was very interesting, very tough, but I'm glad I managed to finish it without putting my foot down. All I did was just too much of clutch control, and I used the rear brakes just so that I make sure that I have enough control over the steering. So it was quite interesting. Towards the last part of the Gymkhana, it is quite fast because you've got a lot of space between the flags. But as you start off and as you end, that's where the difficult part is. And I tried to also, close up a lot of time with a circle here and just keeping close to it and controlling my acceleration and my rear brakes. But it was fun. It was fun.
So Team Habashwe doing all the business. The rest of the teams, as they had finished the Gymkhana, they went out onto the main circuit to start their practice for the sprint events. We caught up with a couple of riders to see how they felt about the Gymkhana.
Yes, ek wil net weet hoe was dit vir jou?
Yeah, it's awesome. It's a lucky event and almal geniet dit.
Wonderful. My first time doing that, so what can I say?
And
we tried our best.
Was it easy?
No, in between, yeah.
AJ, one of the closest battles we've seen in the Gymkhana so far today. You don't mind going a little bit slow every now and again, eh?
Yeah, Matt, sometimes slow is faster, but I think I was more worried about putting my foot down and falling over like a novice.
You can't blame someone for the front end tucking there. It's all you, hey?
Oh man, I'm surprised. At least I know I'm not the first one.
With day one in the bag of the SBS Superbike Olympics, day two was all action and all business as well. Sprint racing in the morning and the show-stopping 4-hour endurance event in the afternoon. All teams would go through a secondary riders briefing just to remind them of the rules going forward. An event such as this, the Superbike Olympics, could not happen without partnership and sponsorships, and we're lucky to have a lot of the guys here supporting and even racing. Mike Joubert from SBR, great to have you on board. You're a massive supporter of particularly this series of racing and racing throughout as well.
Absolutely. It's a joy to be here. It's a beautiful day, and we hope that the guys are going to enjoy the day. We started off last year with the event and sponsored MRA, who actually dragged us into this business. And we've been fortunate that we've sponsored Phil Atkinson in UK, David McFadden, and we're hoping to get Colin Lehman over to the TT World Isle of Man. So yeah, it's been good for us. We've had a lot of fun, most fantastic fun we've ever had in our lives. It's just been absolutely fun. It brings out the fun in everyone. And if you look at the camaraderie that the guys have got, the sportsmanship that they've portrayed here, it's fantastic.
So day one was all about the drags and Gymkhana. Day two, sprint race preparation and all eyes thinking about the endurance event later on.
Good day to go racing, yeah. If I can get into my suit.
Great to see the riders just crowbarring their way in for day two action. The sprint races would start with Category A. We caught up with some riders on the line. Pete, how are you feeling? You're lined up second place here in the Class A's. I know you're a good starter, but remember, you cannot break out, and that's the hardest part about today.
Yeah, first of all, thanks to the sponsors, Lamacor Electrical. I'm looking forward to a tough battle with the guys, We've got some top quality riders here, and one of the best starters from the ladies here next to me, so we're going to give it everything we've got.
fastest qualifier, AJ Fenter. AJ, this is going to be a weird race for you, buddy. It's literally going to be all about dialing it back, but you can win the race in turn 1 and lap 1, can't you?
Yeah, Matt, you know, I think it's going to be a good race. I looked at the time this morning. I think there's 6 guys all doing the same lap time. So you've got to try not get too ahead of yourself and actually slow down. So I don't know, it's going to be a tough one.
One of the big stories coming into the sprint races was the fact that the time brackets were so close and inhibiting for the top national, regional, and sometimes club riders to have to stay within a 144 limit, meaning if you went any faster than 144 in the sprint race, you would be wearing a 20-second penalty. So everything had to be done on the opening lap to stretch that lead. We got Kurbis from Electronia here, one of the co-sponsors and one of the guys really behind an event such as this, the Superbike Olympics. And tell them a little about Electronia and how they came to be involved.
Now, we come from a cycling fraternity and we went over to the motorcycling, which is, I must say, much easier on the legs. But you are so tired after a race, and putting everything together just makes it so much nicer when everybody participates, and it brings together that camaraderie, you know, the nice feeling to actually partake in something and make the best of it. Even if you don't win, we all come out as winners because we feel the relief of getting it done safely, and also actually getting across to the people out there that this is nice. This is something really, it turns the adrenaline to 100%. And you actually, at the end of the day, feel so tired, but so fulfilled, because if you've reached something that you've done, it's safe, and it just brings across to the whole family.
So all the riders were having to drop the hammer hard on the opening lap, a standing lap, really offering them the only chance to really go all out hell for leather and maintain that gap. After that, it was up to the pit wall to manage their riders and keep them calm so they did not break out of the 144 bracket. Such a hard task, and everyone hanging over the wall would have their work cut out, even more than the riders themselves. AJ Fenter would be leading across the stripe, and he would have another BMW national competitor for company in the early stages at least, with Nick Kershaw shadowing him and DeVos closing in third. Here with Bruce from Turbo Toys. Bruce, you're here at the Superbike Olympics, but you've got a bigger picture here as well. Turbo Toys coming big time on board and helping with the setup here at Bekisa. There's a lot going on, eh?
A lot going on. Obviously nerves for the day, trying to get over the nerves for the morning. The main thing is, in my game, been in the business for over 20 years. Turbo Toys is a large supplier of used engines, gearboxes, and high-performance car parts. Obviously, in our game, got to spend a lot of money, and with big exposures for our business, got a lot of opposition. But we're always trying to give our customers the best deals in the business. And obviously, we're part of all the racing scenes, all the drifting, anything to do with high-performance cars, engines, anything you guys need. We're the people to give us a call, eh? Man, it's only my second time doing this, and I'm loving it. I mean, I've had a ZX-10, I've had lots of bikes in my life, but I've had my ZX-10 just lying in the garage for 3 years, and I've got a friend, Doug, that got me out on this, and I'm loving it. Every second of it is like a family. Everybody looks after everybody, and I suggest it to anybody out there. Please, guys, get on your bikes, come out here and have fun.
So great to see the national competitors out there, but it was obvious coming out of the early laps that they would have to calm it down. In fact, all 4 of the top riders went into the breakout zones very, very early on, meaning that riders that were sitting around about 4th and 5th place, and that was, at that stage, Rob Morph and Donovan Faree, they would actually be moving up into 1st, 2nd place on the track. The pit wall would be extremely busy with mechanics and team supporters trying to get the information to their riders, because what was not mentioned is the fact that all of their lap timers were taped up, so they could not self-manage, and they had to go on the information getting fed over the pit wall. That unfortunately did not get through to the top 3 riders on laps 2, 3, and 4, meaning that penalties were handed out. Great racing put on nonetheless though, but it was clear that the boys were having to hold something back and not able to really deliver their full lap times. So 144, quite limiting for a Category A rider, with them able to run in the high 39s at national competition. The information eventually got across to the riders that they needed to roll it back, but unfortunately, the damage was done. They were still having a jaw out there, putting on a great show, and the onboard cameras showing how close it was, in fact, between Nick Kershaw and AJ Fenter for the actual lead. Into the lappers towards the late stages of the race, and Kershaw would be the first man, even though he was looking over his shoulder, he would be the first man to see the flag, as De Vos was just doing some learning out there, hounding the back end of AJ Fenter on the back wheel then, and the first flag out for the first sprint race of the day. But it was Breakout City, and the top three would be wearing penalties big time. That meant that the actual win went to Donovan Faree, and team JPVDM took the win ahead of Neil Mering on HPS Racing and Rob Morph on Morphin Team. Sprint races for the Bees would see some big hitters lining themselves up as well. Their number, the magic breakout number, would be a 149, and all thoughts turned towards that as information got fed across the wall from how many riders actually broke out in the first Class A sprint race. All teams would be on the D-low now, trying to keep the pace under wraps. Still, you could do a big sprint lap coming into the first lap, and that was definitely what Johan van der Merwe, Team Fantastic Four, did, as he threw down a big number straight off the standing lap. Good shots of Hanno van der Merwe coming through there of Team JPVDM, trying his best to pull up their socks after not scoring too many big numbers in the early events. Johan van der Merwe, though, did a big stretch in lap 1.
Here with Doug Lottridge from Lomacore Electric, and Doug, you're one of the big supporters here. I've been enjoying watching you go out in every single session, and you're one of the guys with the biggest smile on your face at this event. You've got to be pumped.
Yes, indeed. Thanks to MRA and Andre for really making this happen. I got involved about 18 months ago. I've always been passionate about bikes. But let me take it off the road and take it to the track. And really, I can really recommend this to any biker out there. Bring your road bike here. Come really learn what these things can do. On the road, you can't try this. You can't do it. You're just being dangerous. You're going to injure yourself. Now, come out here, guys. It's not expensive. And just have awesome fun. It's very safe. We got one of the fastest ZX10 riders, Peter Vos. We got Davey Slippers. We got Bruce Ham, my buddy from Turbo Toys. And then myself. I'm not the fastest man in town, but damn it, I have fun. We try hard. It's not about the winners. It's not about who comes first, who comes last. It's about let's have a lot of fun out here.
There was some absolutely incredible clustering going on during the Class B race, and it was clear that the information was working. Look at all those arms and pit boards hanging over the wall, telling everyone to dial it back, and the information was getting relayed perfectly. Hanno van der Merwe of Team JPVDM just dialing it back and reacting to the information getting hung over the wall, but it was meaning that he was falling back into the clutches of a 6-rider group, meaning that he may get sucked along and coerced into that dice, and the dice was what was causing all the problems during the sprint races. Remember, a 20-second penalty for the riders breaking out. The magic number, a 149, and Johan van der Merwe had dialed his pace way back and was starting to get closed down by the chasing group. A crash, and unfortunately, the first crash of the weekend going to Team Amphibia, and that was a hard hit. Marlow punching the ground, and he would have to recover and get that bike up and trucking. Team racing means the team, all of them, have to score points. Out front, all about Johan van der Merwe getting closed down and just tapping off the pace, but still, there were riders in the breakout zones, and penalties were getting thrown out there left, right, and center. The riders that were doing the clever thing were the riders that did the hot lap on laps 1 and 2 and then rolled it back. So hard for the riders in their mentality as racers to allow riders to come past them, but sometimes discretion was the better part of valor. As the flag came out, though, it was a clean run from Johan van der Merwe Jr. and Team Fantastic Four took their first sprint race victory in the Class Bs. The rest of the results read: Hanno van der Merwe of Team JPVDM got second place, Team HPS Racing and Donnie van Rensburg got third. By this stage, the Class C riders, as they got themselves ready for their sprint event, would know that the penalties were starting to get handed out. Most of the riders in the classes A and B had taken a ton of penalties, and the points were starting to add up in a very bad way. The magic number for the Class Cs, a 154 breakout bracket, meaning that this would be very dangerous. A lot of the Class C riders finding it hard to stay within their zone, and a couple of riders finding it hard to get off the line as well. Fastest qualifier was Ruan van Rooyen of Team Amphibia, so he was expected to be a high flyer in the early stages, along with Bruno Lampro of East Coast Motorcycles and Rocky Meyering of the now very consistently point-scoring Team HPS Racing. They were starting to put some very strong numbers on the page.
Stood here with Tracy from East Coast Motorcycles. Tracy, how did you guys get hooked up with a track that is 1,000,000 miles away from home?
Yes, it is. It's about a 6-hour travel here. We didn't have a track in KZN. We have riders on the road without the skills, and so we decided we needed to take our riders and give them some riding skills, and the best academy in South Africa is MRA Academy, and that's how we got involved. So we've got customers that still do the training, we still bring people along for training, and then they develop into the fun aspect. We're serious about our fun.
Philip Human from Team JPVDM was doing an incredible job to run his very stock KTM in the top 5. And Class C were proving that it was extremely hard to stay within the breakout bracket. Rocky Meyering, Team HPS Racing, was looking like he was locked in on that Fireblade of his as the rest of the team came streaking through. 17 teams, 17 riders. Everyone was still out on track and putting the pace up. The concern by lap number 3 was Breakout City, and a couple of the riders were getting the numbers handed out. The highest climber, in fact, was Philip Human on JPVDM, who had got himself up into 4th.
SBS is the naming rights sponsor for the Superbike Olympics. I'm here with Ryan Robertson. Ryan, you have got a ton of experience in the industry, and you know a good fit when you see one. Well, you found it here, buddy.
Absolutely. I mean, Andre is running a really ship-shape adventure. We decided that when he approached us that it would be the perfect product to line up our product with, being a premium brand. And with previously having lined up Pirelli, also a premium brand with his 8-hour event, we thought, well, SBS Superbike Olympics was the next step. So it's SBS's association in the racing industry is well-known world round, and they've actually supported our local riders as well abroad. Tyler Rattray now running with Ryan Villapoto. And also, obviously, when our local boy Sheridan went over, when he was racing with Sofoglio, the SBS was running there. They've been in the Tinkata team for, I think, 15 championships odd. So, you know, SBS's association with racing is just, well, it's synonymous with racing, if you can put it that way. And like I said, with a premium product that Andre's offering the clients here and the guys to come and race, we thought it was the perfect association.
Towards the end of the race, it was clear that Rocky Meyering, Ian Thomas, Johan Norkier and Philip Human were doing the business out front, leaving the rest of the guys either in their wake or up the road, wearing a ton of penalty points, and this would hurt them when it came down to the point-scoring marker. Donovan Neethling was locked in a battle, trying to break his way into the top 10 to score some numbers for Team Divine Science. In the end, it was Rocky Meyering, Ian Thomas, Philip Human and Johan Norkier who had done the best work on the track and whose team had fed the best information to them so that they could bring the points home and climb the ladder. At the flag, once again, Team HPS Racing, this time Rocky Meyering, got the numbers on the page at the very top. Ian Thomas of Team Morphin was in second place with Johan Norkier for Four Ways Motorcycles #1 team. He got third place ahead of Philip Human on JPVDM, and Juan of Team RPM rounded off the top 5.
In the house with Team Habashwe and Dumi. You guys have trucked all the way from Bloem. It's just around the bend, actually, isn't it? But you got to be feeling good about this one, hey?
It is around the bend. We're a little bit disappointed when I got here yesterday. It was still raining. So I tried to take a few laps with my car on the track just to try and dry up the track, but it failed. So the rest of the day and the night was just wasted due to this rain. But I'm happy to see this lovely weather that we have today.
Team Habashwe would line up as part of the Category Ds after their rider qualifying, Birdie Olivier, qualifying in 11th place. Not too bad for the guys that didn't get that much practice on the practice day. The rest of the teams would line themselves up and get themselves ready. Once again, a 17-rider lineup. In qualifying, Colin Jeffries of Team SBR was the pole man, with Rayan of Team RPM and the Big Bang Theories, Kobus van Rensburg, on the front row. Again, the theory was qualify on the front row, get a good outlap, and then roll it back and pray that no one comes past you. The time breakout bracket for the Class D riders, an extremely limiting 1:59. Team JP VDM's Renier Sneeman on the number 7 machine was unfortunately one of those flyers where the red mist came out soon as the lights turned green, and he started racking up the penalty points in the very early stages of the sprint race. Kobus van Rensburg and the Big Bang Theory were looking solid on the number 30 machine.
When we talk about partnerships coming into the Superbike Olympics here at MRA Motor Rider Academy, Pakisa Raceway, Goldfields Casino, they go hand in hand, and we've got one of their main representatives here. I've got to tell you, it's a pleasure to have you here. It's a little bit wild and noisy, but I know you're enjoying it.
Yeah, well, it's very nice. It's a nice day out for everyone to enjoy with their families, and I'm actually quite enjoying the racing that's going on here. Okay, the main goal for the casino is to make sure that we support local. We are in the community, and our main focus is making sure that the community is well served. Pakisa does great things, the academy as well, to develop young people into becoming honed racers. So that is where we get involved, to get the people brought up to be greater people that they can be.
And they've got a little bit of hero worship going on here as well, because we do have one of our top lady riders, a national championship winning drag racer, Lomari Krobler. You've actually gone in with her and you're helping her out for the weekend.
Well, Lomari is our pride and joy. We make sure that we ensure that we help her with her racing, with everything that she needs, because she represents women as well as represents the community at large, and Goldfields Casino is very big on that.
Goldfields, one of our massive sponsors for the event, and actually backing up one of our lady riders out there as well. So watch out as we go forward in the season for some new colours arriving on Lomari Krobler's race machine. Back to the action in the Class Ds, and Colin Jeffries, Brendan Niemand and Hugo Bradfield were doing enough to keep themselves ahead of the rest, and desperately looking for that flag to come out. So nervous for the riders who allowed themselves to get wound up out there on the circuit and involved in some of the dices. That was when the time started to come down, and a couple of riders even breaking out up to 3 seconds beyond the breakout bracket. A 1:59, meaning that the Divine Signs rider Justin Neethling was pretty much on his limit for his 300cc machine, showing that the king of the Gymkhanas was all about flat-out speed on the sprint race as well. And he would go on to finish inside the top 15 when the flag came out. Out front, though, all about the main team players by this stage who were starting to show face on the points boards. HPS Racing, SBR, Fourways, and JP VDM were looking like they could bring home the numbers. The flag was out and waiting, and it was Colin Jeffries of SBR who took their first sprint race victory in the Class Ds. Brendan Niemand and HPS Racing did a good job to get second place, with Hugo Bradfield for Fourways number 1 in third. Renier Sneeman just outside the top 3 for Team JP VDM, making them a strong point-scoring team, with Habashwe in 5th. With a short break in proceedings to allow the sprint race riders to get themselves ready to go forward into the afternoon's 4-hour endurance event, we had a little bit of fun out there on the main start-finish straight at the Pakisa Raceway. The XDL stunt team were in the house. These guys travel the circuit and the circus that is national and regional motorsport to put on a show and some light entertainment for the crowd and some slightly illegal racing moves. Most guys would get the black flag if they pulled moves like this, but it allowed the riders to get themselves into the zone, and we thank Team XDL Stunt Team for the show. So this is what everything has been building towards. The massive 4-hour endurance event to end off Day 2 of the SBS Superbike Olympics. All 17 teams would line themselves up there, and thanks to Audi for supplying the pace cars, making sure the track was clear and good to go before we dropped the flag. It would be a full Le Mans style start, meaning riders would be on the outside running to their bikes and some stumbling and falling towards their bikes. Tie warmers for the boots, not in great demand in South Africa. But the riders would get themselves up, starting things out with the Class A competitors, and all the big hitters would be out there doing their first stint before the changeover flags would get hung over the wall, and we would be going into the changeovers.
AJ Venter, one of South Africa's top international stars. He's been across and done Macau. He's done the TT. He's more Irish than he is South African now. He has been overseas so much. Mel, he's on your bike this weekend, buddy. Thanks for stepping up to the plate.
He's abusing it today. But I have to. I must tell you, that guy's incredible. He's like a maniac on a bike, doing straights and doing flipping drags on a back wheel. That's crazy.
He even joked with me this morning. He says he was shaking when he had to line up against Lomery. He said he could not believe it. Tell me how this partnership came about. He says it's the first time he've ever stepped on a BMW.
Yeah, what happened was I needed a guy for a rider because I do, but I'm not that great. So Andre said to me he's got a brilliant guy that I can use. And I said, shit, I don't like guys taking my bike and abusing it. So I thought, okay, let's see. So I met him and I said, listen here, AJ, please come and use the bike. And he says, okay, he sat on the bike. He says, okay, it hasn't been it, so he'll try it. So he took it out for a ride and he says, no, crazy. He loves it. So he's actually setting up for me. He's a bit lighter than me, so he's going to set it up for me as well. The way I'm driving it, I'm doing about 155s, 150, so not that great. But he's doing flipping 144s on mine now. He's just taking it out. So that's brilliant. So he's loving it. He might go over to BMW.
And a very good point to make here. In the endurance event, the same breakout categories counted, meaning that the A-class riders that would start the first session, 20 minutes of racing, could not still break out of the 144 bracket. This time, if they did, it wouldn't just be a 20-second penalty they would be wearing, it would be a full lap and a couple of claps from your other teammates because you've cost them a lap. The riders to watch out for in this session would of course be the top national campaigners such as AJ Venter and Nicholas Kershaw. Donovan Free would be there, Neil Mayring. Rob Morph had done an incredible run for Morphin to get a lot of points on the table, and Tovs Malifi for the Big Bang Theory. One of those teams that had been quietly banging home the results and getting a lot of points along the way. Divine Signs, represented by the big man Andre Neethling and Lomery Krobler for Fantastic Four. But after lap number 2, it all seemed to calm down quite nicely, and there was a 3/4 rider breakaway at the front with Lomery Krobler in a lonely 5th place, but unable to close that gap because she knew if she closed up to the back end of, it would be Donovan Faree on the JPVDM KTM, she would go into the breakout bracket. Yellow flag showing that we were heading towards the changeover, heading in to Group B's. The pits were frantic. Riders would have to take the armband off, hand over to the next rider, and then fire them out. So Lomery Krobler, Class A rider, hands over to Johan van der Merwe Jr., Class B for Fantastic Four. And we keep on racing. The second 20-minute session was now underway. The Class B's having to stay within their 149 bracket, and racing was starting to definitely heat up. There was a rhythm. There was a way of winning these events. And what the riders weren't necessarily told at riders' briefing but a couple of us knew about behind the scenes, was that the point scoring was going to be heavily weighted in favor of the endurance event, meaning that those teams that kept their noses clean and brought home good results throughout the categories would be scoring extra, almost bonus points on top of the results that they'd gained through the Gymkhana, the sprint races, and the drags. So this wasn't known to the riders, but it meant that it was going to be very important come time when we added up the points at the end of the day. Racing was still underway, and the great thing about the Class Bs was the guys that didn't necessarily get the best starts in the As were able to start climbing the ladder. Hanno van der Merwe of Team JPVDM was one of those riders who did a very good job to not break out and make passes on his way to trouble the top steps. Donnie van Rensburg of HPS Racing was also another rider who stayed clean out front and was able to run good numbers. The Big Bang Theory unfortunately started to slide down in their Class B championship campaign with Chris van Rensburg battling, focusing on Fantastic Four racing once again. And an interesting scenario here. Johan van der Merwe Jr. hands over to Daphne Lang, and boyfriend and girlfriend tag team as she goes out racing. The Class Cs, the category that actually broke out the most in their sprint race, would have everybody hanging over the wall, keeping things calm. Class C was definitely a nail-biter and possibly a category in session that would decide the overall result, because these were the guys that broke out the most. These were the guys and girls that got the most excited and cost their teams the most penalty points. Philip Human from Team JPVDM was doing great out there on his KTM and allowing his team to move into the top 3 overall by this stage. Rowan van Rooyen and Team Amphibia easily recognizable by all of the bikes being bright pink, and you can't see it on television, but that's about 6 rolls of pink duct tape to wrap all those bikes up and change the color and theme. And that's the great thing that we need to remind ourselves about as we're watching the Class Cs racing out there. The team spirit was absolutely incredible, and something that's been missing in all other forms of superbike racing. Points and the support of your team, making for incredible riding and camaraderie. Out of Cs and onto Ds, and all riders knowing what they have to do. They're not just riding for themselves, they're riding for their team and the overall honor of their team to get up in the order. Staying with the Fantastic Four team, Janet De Beer heads out to do the business as the Class D campaigner in that team. Class Ds still having to lock themselves into the 159 bracket, and these riders by this stage were spread out around the Pekisa Raceway circuit in Welkom. Not too much great dicing going on in the Class Ds, but these were the riders that were just trying to put points on the page, bring it home, and not break out. Ds, as we've seen with other forms of endurance superbike racing, can be the difference between a win and a loss. You can win with your slowest rider. It's very hard to win, though, with your fastest rider breaking out. So a lot of pressure on the shoulders of riders such as Colin Jeffries of Team SBR, HPS Racing's Brendan Niemand, Hugo Bradfield, 4Ways1, Renier Sneeman on JPVDM. Habashwe were doing incredible pace with Bertie Olivier pulling up his socks, and they would be troubling a top 15 finish by the end of play. The Saints with Vic Winkelman were out there. Clinton Besadenhout for East Coast Motorcycles. Craig Russell on the Morphin machine was trying to keep it real, and they would be a team to watch out for come the end of play as they tackled a top 5 finish in the overalls. 4Ways2 with Werner, Team RPM and Ryan were out there. Amphibia with Eben behind the bars. And as the Class Ds came towards the end of their first session, as did the daylight start to disappear from the Pekisa Raceway. All the other categories would do the business once again, and it would be down to the Ds to wait for the flag and take the checkers. All teams did cross the stripe. 17 teams lined up, 17 teams finished. And that wrapped up the endurance event here at the Superbike Olympics. So as the riders came and did their cool-down lap, they were met on the start-finish line by their teammates for the celebrations. We caught up with event organizer Andre Neethling to talk about how well the event had gone.
When I started the thinking of this whole concept of having Olympic Games, I wanted to introduce something for the average track day rider. And honestly, my plea out there to the national guys and the proper fast riders is to come and join these events. You know, there's so many guys in the pit lane, there's so many riders looking up to these super fast oaks, you know, and it's so awesome to rub shoulders with them. So yes, for a super fast rider, obviously he needs to slow down a little bit so it doesn't break out of his allocated lap time. But you know what, if every fast rider in the country could bring 3 mates with, you know, he will be like the idol, and he will say, okay guys, this is how we do things, and this is how we organize a team. And I promise you, we'll get more guys into racing, and that's the aim of what I'm trying to do. I don't care if they go from here into regionals, to nationals, to ZX10 Cup, I don't care. But you know what, we're creating the atmosphere, we're creating the possibility for the average Joe in the street to come and race, to come and do endurance racing, gymkhana, track racing. I mean, how awesome is that, to take an average person off the street and say, come boot, there's your bike, race.
For the Gymkhana event, Team Amphibia beat out the best in the slow speed racing. And in the overalls at the end of the Olympics, third place went to Team JPVDM, second the East Coast Motorcycles, and kings of the Olympics walking away with the gold medal, HBS Racing. This SBS Superbike Olympics 2015 racing action was proudly brought to you by Goldfield Casino and their associate sponsors.